Nepalese Foreign Minister Pradeep Kumar Gyawali is on a 3-day visit to India. The focus of his visit is to procure 12 million vaccines from India for phase 1 of inoculation drive in Nepal. He also has a special message for Prime Minister Modi on behalf of Nepalese Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. Despite writing to procure vaccines from both China and India, Kathmandu has given priority to the vaccines produced in India because of New Delhi's assurance to facilitate procurement. The Nepali delegation includes the ambassador of Nepal to India, the foreign secretary and other senior officials. This is the first high-profile visit from Nepal in over a year, after Prime Minister Oli triggered a border row last year by publishing a new political map. Gyawali will also be participating in the 6th Nepal-India Joint Commission meeting. He will hold discussions with his Indian counterpart S. Jaishankar and take stock of the projects underway in Nepal and in the others in pipeline. Earlier, in a video conversation with Nepal Prime Minister Modi had promised that vaccines for Nepali citizens would be given a priority. Joining us on this broadcast is WION's principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal. Siddhant, what can be expected out of this meeting today? Yes, Nepal wants to procure 12 million vaccines from India. What else is on the agenda?
Well, Shobit, this is a significant visit for many reasons, but the big focus, of course, is the fact that the COVID vaccine procurement will be top of the agenda, both from the Nepali side and from the Indian side. The Indian side has said that when it comes to neighborhood will get the priority when it comes to the COVID vaccine. But this visit has other connotations as well, given the fact that it is happening in the backdrop of political crisis in Nepal. This, of course, as you pointed out, is the first visit from that country to India after the border row, the map row. In fact, how the Nepali government led by KP Sharma Oli came out with a new Nepali map that showed Indian territories as Nepali territories, and we all know that India is very, very touchy like any other country when it comes to its territorial integrity and sovereignty. India had dismissed it that time, and there was in fact no conversation between Kathmandu and New Delhi for months after the map row, and only towards the end of last year we saw high-level visits from India to Nepal. 3 visits in fact happened, first by the intelligence chief, followed by the army chief, and then the foreign secretary of India. Now this visit coming from Nepal, and in fact the Indian foreign secretary had extended the invitation last year in the month of November, when he had visited the country, and this visit was in fact expected to happen in December of 2020, but it could not happen because of the political crisis, the Nepali Prime Minister dissolving the lower house of the Nepali Parliament. So clearly the political crisis will be playing somewhere in the backdrop, given the fact that there is some kind of indication at how Nepali Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli is trying to reach out to New Delhi, even as the Chinese influence is something that has been very evident in Nepal, because just a few days after he dissolved the lower house of the parliament, China sent a vice minister to Kathmandu to get a ground report, in a sense, of what is happening. China is very keen to have a united Communist Party, the Nepal Communist Party, but a split has already happened. And this year, one of the most significant events that will happen in Nepal will be the elections, and what will be the result of that election.
Absolutely, Siddhant. Like you said, the key focus will be on the vaccines, and Nepal had in fact written to both India and China for procurement of the vaccines against COVID-19. But with the Nepali Foreign Minister's visit to New Delhi, it appears that Nepal has given priority to vaccines manufactured in India due to reasons like logistics. But it's not just Nepal, isn't it? Countries like Myanmar have placed an order of 30 million vaccines from India. So countries like Nepal and others in South Asia are looking at India for procurement of vaccines against COVID, isn't it?
Well, when it comes to COVID vaccine, we do expect the vaccine diplomacy to start very soon. India is going to start its mega vaccination process on Saturday, coming Saturday, and then thereafter the focus will be on the neighborhood and beyond. We also know that the Brazilian president had written to Indian Prime Minister for India's vaccine. So India's vaccine is something that will be one of the most sought after product this year, given the fact that many countries has reached out to New Delhi, but also the fact that India has been able to reaffirm its position as the pharma capital of the world during the COVID crisis last year. We know that India sent medicines like HCQ and paracetamol to 150 countries. So this time also India is expected to give out its vaccine. But India has made it clear that when it comes to the vaccine, it is going to first focus on the domestic demand, on making sure that Indians get the vaccine, and then of course going to reach out to various countries. But this is assured that when it comes to neighborhood, whether it's Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives or Sri Lanka, India is going to help when it comes to the COVID vaccine. In fact, the Indian Foreign Minister, the External Affairs Minister, had visited Sri Lanka just a few weeks ago, and during his conversations with the President and the other leadership in the country, he promised that when it comes to vaccine, India will be the first country to help them out, because the debate, China versus the Indian vaccine debate, is also going on in other parts of South Asia, including in Sri Lanka.
One final question, Siddhant, what is the status of the COVID pandemic in Nepal? There have been certain protests in parts of Nepal as far as health workers staging protests, demanding better allowances and support from the government.
Well, when it comes to the COVID crisis, it has impacted all the countries in the world, but it has especially impacted developing countries, of course, who are already facing other kind of crisis. So Nepal is no different. It has not only faced the wrath of the COVID pandemic, but also the economic impact of the COVID pandemic. In fact, the Indian Prime Minister last year, when the COVID crisis had just started in South Asia, had called for a virtual meeting of the SAARC countries, in which all the prime ministers, barring of course Pakistan and other heads of state, participated, including the Nepali Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. The focus was how India can help and how the other countries can also pitch in. A SAARC emergency fund was also created to help out to these countries, and India has been reaching out to Nepal as well in terms of medicine, in terms of other services as well. But the impact, of course, has been grim. It has been impacting the locals in Nepal, and this coming at a time when there has been a prolonged political crisis. Not only the dissolution of the parliament in Nepal, the lower house of the parliament in Nepal, but also all throughout last year we saw governance being impacted, given the fact that the Nepali Prime Minister was talking about other issues. There was a division in the Nepal Communist Party as well. Prachanda versus Oli was something that was the dominating headlines, and the second headline, of course, was the COVID crisis, which of course exacerbated in a sense because of the governance gap in the country due to the political crisis.
Siddhant Sibal, thank you so much for joining us with all the latest updates as Nepalese Foreign Minister visits India for procuring vaccines against COVID. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.